Every single day, people take unwanted or unused items to thrift and antique stores across the country. But as the saying goes, one man's trash is another man's treasure, and we're here to prove it. Identify valuable things before you throw them away. Join us as we show and tell of treasures found and sold by a full-time reseller with the hopes of helping you find some treasures of your own. Welcome to the What's Sold podcast.
Welcome back to the What's Sold podcast, a place where all your dreams come true on a weekly basis, Matt, on a weekly
I had the
basis.
mental image of the, what was it, the Reading Rainbow? Like that kind of imagery coming over. It's
Sure.
such a sweet tagline, where your dreams come true.
Not where your dreams, all your dreams come true.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We have just a little housekeeping stuff. Folks that are out there, we are getting a lot of play on our YouTube channel, which I find ironic that people listen on YouTube, but whatever. We're grateful for you, YouTube viewer / listener. Why you want to look at two old men to talk about selling stuff is beyond me, but hey, we're grateful that you're here. I would much rather listen to the dulcet tones in just audio, but hey, if you like the video, we're here to please you. All
That's right.
So, but remember to, if you get a chance, tell a friend, follow, like, and subscribe. We've been doing this for a little over a year now, and we are excited to launch it. We've been threatening a live stream, and we are going to be doing that in the next 2 weeks. I just got to...
Ooh.
Let me tell you,
Awesome.
right, folks, trying to pin down Rusty the reseller, he's always got something, like a couple weeks ago, he was like, "Hey, Brandon, I can't talk, I'm running." He still got busted by the ATF or the, I don't know, alcohol, tobacco, and fire, somebody, his hauler still. So he was on the run, and then his Impala wouldn't run, and it's just one thing after another. But so yesterday, we normally record on Wednesdays, but yesterday we couldn't record. I have no idea why we couldn't record. I just know that when Matt goes radio silent on me, something's up. So what happened to you yesterday?
Yeah, so it's kind of exciting that the portion of my business now, which is the consignment, we'll call it consignment, where I'm selling things for other people. I get a percentage of that for the work, but it belongs to them. I'm getting so many referrals, word of mouth, and it's starting to get to a point where I got to figure out what I'm going to do. Do I hire some people, or do I start telling people, hey, I'm a month out or 2 months out, you got to wait? But all that to say, I had a referral from someone else that I have and am currently selling things for, and they just needed a bunch of stuff taken, and it was a lot of stuff even that I don't deal with a whole lot usually, which is like furniture and some larger items. But I did. They're super sweet people. All that to say, I had to rent a U-Haul truck in order to get this stuff, right? Because there's a large amount of stuff.
What? See, I told you, Rusty's off doing it. He's like, I'd get you a U-Haul.
I am. Yep. So, it wasn't just trying to get a U-Haul. The first day I went to try to get a U-Haul, I had scheduled it even. I show up, and it's not there. And there was some explanation about, well, we're really low in inventory. This needed some work done on it last minute. And lo and behold, because so many of these U-Haul facilities in this region were heavily damaged or destroyed from the hurricane in September of last year, the little rental place, which is not even just a U-Haul place, it's one of those, it's a rental tool place, but they also are a hub for some rentals. It's like one of the only available ones in this area now. And so, as you can imagine, everyone's competing over trying to get stuff in that spot. So all that to say, the first day I was going to do it, couldn't do it. Next day I wanted to do it, there was no truck available because there's such a hot item. And I have to have a truck, both for size and also because it's, off and on raining almost every day right now. So finally got over there, loaded a bunch of stuff up. I discovered while I'm there that these people who were a referral have referred me to someone else. And ironically, while I'm there fulfilling this work I'm going to do for them or getting it, that person calls and leaves me a voicemail. So it's operating very well. I've done no work on marketing. I've spent no money on marketing. This is just word of mouth from happy customers, which is what else can you ask for?
So how many people have you done consignment for that, or not consignment, but you know what I mean, estate sale, whatever we're calling it.
Yeah, in total, have you done? I mean, maybe 15 in total. But I probably got 12, 10 to 12 people actively currently that I'm selling some things for, and it's really awesome. And the piece about, hey, I'm doing some of these things that I wouldn't normally do, like I'm gonna get a bunch of this furniture and try to offload it for you locally, which is not it's not a very big piece of my business. I almost look at that as marketing. You take a job sometimes because you get this feeling, or maybe you're throwing darts and you're hoping something sticks, but you do this, you kind of build up that pool of references, and you get the word out by doing work. And sure enough, like before I'd even got all of their items, they'd already referred me to a family member. And this person's in the Charlotte area. So like now I'm getting referrals an hour and a half, 2 hour drive away. And I don't know if I'll take that. You know what I mean? But it's cool that it's happening. And so something's going to have to happen. Like I said, I'm going to have to hire some people, or I have to say, I'm just one person. I want to stay one person. So you got to wait for me if you really want this until I'm ready. Or maybe I start getting more selective because I've got all this stuff in. Like, well, maybe this is something maybe 6 months ago I would have taken on. But because of the value of the items and the fact that I've got enough business, I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is there.
It seems like, especially today, and in light of this show, we started this show because I loved the idea of what you were doing and helping people. And, we've talked about this ad nauseum, but
for sure,
it seems like that's the kind of thing that if somebody was out there trying to get started in this business, that you could find for lack of a better word, an apprentice. Yeah. Somebody that could come along behind you and say, listen, you already have the business. You already have all this stuff. It's a matter of, like any business, in what I do, where I produce podcasts and do a bunch of things, it takes a long time. But once you hit a certain point, all of a sudden, I don't have enough time in the day to do all the work that I have.
Right.
It's a great problem to have.
It is, yeah.
For people that are out there that are starting these selling businesses or doing whatever, that's a great thing to be thinking about long term. Like, you probably don't want to be schlepping around to every market forever, unless maybe it's part-time and you just enjoy doing that. But if you're really doing this full-time, the way you're doing it strikes me as the best way to do it.
Yeah, and I think, in the spirit of sort of the theme we've had recently, which is, hey, the economy is we don't know what's happening. Maybe it's time right now for you to sell some of your own things or get into this at least part-time. But it's great to have your own job. And I think that one of the ways you can avoid having to go out and just hope that with your lack of experience, you find a bunch of valuable stuff and you can buy. But it's also fine to just start telling people, hey, like, I sell stuff. I'll sell your stuff for you if you want, and start that way, because then you don't have to spend money, and you can research it, and maybe you're not under the gun you have to sell this in a month. Maybe they don't care how long it takes.
Yeah.
And you kind of learn as you go.
Matt is actually selling a ring for me now, and I don't honestly care. I've had this ring for years.
Okay.
And I honestly don't.
I've already got some interest.
Let me just tell. I'm not going to tell Matt, but I don't really care how much he gets for it. I just think it's great that I can give it to you.
That's an aside.
If something comes back.
Yeah. Oh, and something will. And this is the great story, because I was recently just sort of reviewing a few parts of some previous episodes, and I listened again to the story, and this is how the story came out of Brandon's mouth. Was my wife found this awesome gold Tiffany necklace, and I want you to sell it. I show up, and you know what it was? He hands me this plastic cheap necklace.
Okay.
And I say, wait a second, this is costume jewelry, man. This isn't whatever. Then he asks his wife, who, by the way, the story was his wife wanted me to sell it. So we speak, and she goes, no, that's not it. And also, it's not gold. It's like a little silver heart pendant on a silver chain. She goes and gets it, and she's like, and absolutely not, you're not selling it. I don't want to sell this.
Listen,
so basically,
there may have been some
no part
miscommunication.
of your story was true at all. But the consolation prize was he did award me a gold ring. And now I'm going to try to... It was like, well, you came all this way. I may find something for you.
It actually worked out pretty well, I think. It was interesting. My wife did say a Tiffany necklace.
Mm-hmm.
I went into our bathroom. There was a necklace. I don't know anything about anything. I am not Matt. Matt looks... This is the best part. I showed it to Matt. He takes exactly 1 second. He goes, that's garbage. He goes, that's just a cheap piece of costume jewelry. And I'm like, wait, what? I
thought it was a joke. I thought, honestly, the joke... I was waiting for Ashton Kutcher to jump out, after all these years.
You've been punked. Well, the truth is that that's the reason why we do the show, because you're the expert and most of us are not. So I did learn something. Number one is that I need to ask my wife's permission to do anything, which has always been the case. Happy wife, happy life. She kind of made it sound like she might want to sell it. I don't know. I might have editorialized.
I think the takeaway for all of this is just so that listeners know, we have built-in fidelity measures to test and make sure that I actually know what I'm talking about. And I'll show up someplace and someone will be like, this is a Tiffany gold necklace. And it's like, does he know that it is or isn't? And they're in the background, producers are checking off boxes.
Right.
Our producer, all of our producers for this,
right.
producers.
What Matt doesn't know is that we've been filming this for a year, and we're going to release it as a TV show on the A&E network.
It took a year to film this one episode to get it right.
Well, so needless to say, I am super grateful that you're selling this ring, but it's one of those things where I think for many of us, and you might be in your neighborhood and you might just not know, there are lots and lots of people that have stuff they want to sell, but they just don't have the time or knowledge or inclination to do it. I would much rather pay a percentage to a person like Matt to sell something that would have just sat in a box in my house forever and I would have never sold it. It's like, hey, everybody wins in that case. So I'm really stoked. I hope that you get something for it, but regardless, maybe it's just you and me going out to a steak dinner and I'd be okay with that.
I'm glad you verified that it was a ring. It's so large. I got home, I'm like, is this a bracelet? No, it's probably for an ankle or something. I only found out, I've Google Lensed it. I mean, it's like a size 50 or something. You weren't kidding when you said you have big hands.
Yeah, it's huge. It is a weighty, I don't even know how, it weighed a lot, and it was, what was the brand? You mentioned it.
I'll either sell it or use it as, a hand dumbbell to lift weights because
or you can use it as a fish weight. So, I mean,
there you
can
go.
do that.
Yeah.
What's the name of the brand of the ring? I forget.
James Avery.
So that's the thing. Again, I don't know any of this stuff. Now, if you told
he gives me the ring and I go, oh, this is 14 karat. He's like, yeah. He's like, okay. I'm like, it's a James Avery ring, man. This will be more. And he's like, it's a what? I'm like, dude, this is your ring. What do you mean?
Well, it's my ring from a long time ago that I didn't pay that much attention to in the first place. But,
sure.
I've got to, hey, this is a weird question.
It featured a lot of unicorns, by the way. It was like dolphins jumping over unicorns with the rainbow in the background.
Is that wrong?
It's his favorite.
So here's the question I have for you. Back in the day, and I'm assuming they still do this, they sold those class rings. I remember when I played football in college, when we went to a bowl game, we would get this big giant ring,
huge. I've got one here.
I would never wear.
I got one for some AA, champion football team from the 70s. Are those
rings worth anything?
I mean, yes, it depends. Values range depending on if it's silver, or whatever. A lot of them are just a basic alloy with a stone. A lot of times those, quote unquote championship rings are kind of squared, domed, sort of flat at the top, and they've got all these like tiny little diamond chips, or you know what I mean. They're very kind of flamboyant looking. So yeah, they can, but they can also be $20 or something, because it belongs to somebody else. It wasn't yours, that kind of thing.
Right. I imagine that if it was like an NBA championship ring, it probably would bring a pretty penny. But the California high school football championship ring that I have is probably not going to bring me a lot of money. So it will sit in that box and it will go to my daughter when I die. So, all right, as we're apt to do, as always, we always run late. So let's get right to it. So we started this series, which I loved, on things that we find in our house. And certainly we're in times where like, hey, people are selling stuff. We're in this weird economy right now where nobody's quite sure what's going on. So you gave us examples of things in our kitchens that we could perhaps sell that we don't use anymore and make a fair amount of money. Right. Now we're going to be moving to another part of the house. Where are we going, Matt?
We're going through the kitchen. A lot of times this room is attached to I don't know why, but a lot of times you go through the kitchen.
Because you bring the groceries in.
That's why. Okay, we're talking about the garage, folks. That's a really good point. Heaven forbid you have to walk across, say, a living room to get to the kitchen when you get. But I guess it makes sense. It makes sense.
You could drop an apple on the floor, Matt, in the living room. That would be horrible.
Fair enough. Well, I hope you don't find any old rotten apples while you're looking for the things we're going to talk about in the garage today. The idea is, hey, if you want to just look around the house and see, are there things that could have value? We're going room to room. So we've done the kitchen. You step down in the garage. What are the I mean, it's kind of common sense to think about the types of things that are in the garage. So if I'm panning a person's typical garage, we may have, maybe you keep your trash can or, waste can, something like that, recycles in there. Okay. Maybe you've got a workbench. And what might you have around a workbench? You're going to have tools oftentimes. So that's the first category of things that can have some pretty big values are tools. Now, we'll separate and talk about power tools versus hand tools. I'll start with power tools. There are particular brands that are typically considered better quality brands with power tools, just like anything. Although anymore, most brands can deliver something that's pretty quality. But brands like DeWalt, or Stanley or Craftsman, kind of the list goes on for newer stuff. The one thing I'll caution you about, if a person's, say, wanting to go out and try to find those, not deal with your own, but find them and buy them for good prices, is because the technology changes so frequently, they're able to get more battery power, it seems like, every year or two into the batteries. And so very quickly the old batteries become obsolete. But even older power tools, as long as they're cordless, can have decent value. And why I say cordless is that, just most people want to use cordless things these days, and there's just a bigger market for that. And the newer stuff, obviously, will have a rechargeable battery. But take a look at some of those things. Some of them can bring really big money with power tools, but I would just stick with the tools. You can also sell a tool by itself to places like, used tool places. You can sell them online. People a lot of times want to buy the batteries because they want to show up on a work site, let's say with 4 or 5 batteries. They don't want to just have 1 or 2. So they don't need to buy another tool. They just need the battery. They'll buy used things. So power tools, bigger ones, can be quite valuable, especially if they're old, like a table-based saw or a bandsaw or things like that. However, you're not going to ship that. So you got to keep in mind you're kind of limited with some of those bigger things to your local market. You're probably not going to want to ship or be able to ship things without them getting damaged, that kind of thing. But what I think most people will have more than the power tools are the hand tools. And they've been making hand tools for, since the dawn of man. But it's very common at thrift stores and yard sales and estate sales, and even in your own shed or your garage, to find a bunch of older hand tools, unless you just buy brand new stuff. I've got tools in my garage right now that are 100 years old or older, and they're going to outlast me too, because they're drop forged, steel, and they've been used for generations, but taken care of, and they're built better. I mean, they're just built better than a lot of the stuff they make today, and that's why it lasts. Before I move on, do you have any old tools in your garage, Brandon?
I'm a tool guy. I love tools. I use a lot of tools. I was thinking to myself, one of the things, like you were saying, bandsaw, table saw, sometimes local markets are definitely tough, but almost every market in America has people that are looking for things like bandsaws, because those things really maintain their value. And there's not a lot of moving parts in a table saw. I mean, if you have a sharp blade, typically they'll last for a long, long time. I'm still using my dad's table saw, that he bought 50, 60 years ago. It works great. So all that to say is that those kind of things, I do have a lot. One other point that I was going to make about tools is, especially around hammers or anything with a handle on it. So a lot of people the handle will break and people will be like, I'm just going to throw it away. I'm going to throw the head away. It's like, no. Don't throw away the head. Go buy a new handle. There are plenty of places that will sell. You can even buy a high-end handle that's never going to break and put that hammerhead on it. And so point being is that, like the guitars that you do, reclaiming tools it's a bit of an art, but it's also not terribly complicated. Just keep that in mind, that if you have an old rusty saw, if you clean it up and sharpen it, it could have great value.
Yeah, I mean, there is a person locally, I don't know where he lives, but I know he has a fairly large space at one of the bigger antique stores in Asheville, and that's all he does is refinish tools. I mean, everything from small hand tools like metal punches or chisels or things like that, all the way up to wrenches and pliers, and all the way up to things like hammers or things like that. And he takes them and he just enjoys, I think he enjoys the method of it, because he'll clean them up. Let's say they're rusted, and then he polishes them, and then they look awesome. They probably look cooler than the day they were for sale, honestly, but they're old. And that's a cool gift even to give somebody, like this refinished, refurbed, really old tool. It's functional, it looks cool, and a lot of times you can get them for very cheap. This person just goes around and he'll buy them out of people's storage units, or somebody will die and they'll need to get rid of stuff in a yard sale, and so they'll sell them a bunch of this old stuff for almost nothing because they look ugly, like they're rusted, they're old, and it doesn't take them long, and he makes them look great, and they'll sell well. So it's not just about being functional. Some of these older ones, particular brands, there are collectors then of old tools and particular brands of tools that would be good to look out for. What were you going to say?
There's a guy we probably talked about here. There's a guy here in Asheville who has a shop, and he works with people that are in recovery to teach them a trade.
Ooh.
But his niche is that he builds furniture, but with only antique tools. So he will
yes.
power tool. It's all done by hand. All the work is crafted by hand. The furniture he builds is absolutely stunningly beautiful and quite expensive, as you can imagine.
Sure.
But I think about, like, everybody probably has somebody in their community like that. So if you're a reseller and you're looking for old tools, get to know that guy, because you don't know that he's not going to, like, hey, I'm looking for, there's these things that you used to make shingles back in the old days where you kind of carve down. It almost looks like those pizza cutters, but you kind of pull the shingle, and it makes these I don't even know what they're called, slate roof like shingles, where they're made out of wood. But those are the kinds of things that, if they're well maintained, sharpened, and everything, they could bring great value.
Yeah. Really, like, older good quality chisel sets with wood handles can bring really, really big money. There are several brands of tools that you may recognize, like I've mentioned some of them, Craftsman or Stanley, but other brands like MAC tools, older ones, can bring pretty big money. They're Klein, Klein tools, a lot of hand tools, pliers, particularly if you can find a type of plier called a lineman's plier. They're usually a little bit longer, and they all have the same look. But the vintage Klein, like from the 1940s, 50s, 60s, can bring multiples of hundreds of dollars. I mean, you can go out to the store, store locally to you, and buy a brand new pair of pliers for $20, and they may be just as sturdy, but there are collectors that want some of these things, and the better the condition, the more you're going to get. But just because a tool is, I think a takeaway here is, just because it's old or rusty, or maybe you don't use it that much, doesn't mean it's not a collectible piece once you get into doing the research on it, and it doesn't mean you can't make some good money from it.
Yeah, and a lot of people will have those in their garage, or know someone that does. I mean, you and I went out and looked at it was kind of an estate sale. A friend of mine, her father was he just was a pack rat of tools. He had a room filled with old tools. Now, I don't know how I ended up with some of them, and I know you did as well. But so your tools are one of those things where people like me, who like to build stuff and feel crafty, people like you, will go out and buy these tools, and then when we get older, our kids don't want them, so they kind of, maybe they'll sit in a room. So they're available out there, and some of them are probably in your garage as we speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of along with hand tools, things like clamps that you would clamp things together with can bring good money. There are some of those, and I can't remember the brand, but they're big wooden ones, and they just have two what look like large screws on either side, those clamps. Those can bring really good money, and they last a long time. A lot of times made out of wood, so they may not be too terribly heavy. And then the kind that are, you kind of pump with your hand, and it closes in.
Mm-hmm.
Newer brands, those things, though, the larger ones especially, or strange shapes. Like, for example, a while back, I was looking for some used tools that I needed, and it was because it was kind of specialty. I couldn't just go out to a local store and find it. And what it was I was looking for a C-clamp. That's essentially a clamp that's in the shape of a C. That's all it is. But I needed something that was not just kind of tall. I really wanted it to be super deep in the C, almost like a V shape, but I wanted it to be really wide, and that's a specialty type of thing. I needed it because when I wanted to repair guitar bridges, the only way you can do that is to glue the bridge down, but you need a clamp to hold the underside plate and the top of the bridge, and you're pressing it down so that the glue will adhere. Well, unless you have a C clamp that you can get in there, because that's a good 4 or 5 inches, you can't do that. So I was searching around. I found some used, and I probably would have paid a lot more for them if I had found a brand new one in the store and had to pay retail price for it. So people are looking for all kinds of things. If you have unusual stuff, it probably will be interesting. I've even found, going to yard sales and stuff, a bunch of fabricated tools that was just made by that person for a particular reason. Even my grandfather, when we were looking through his stuff, had 2 or 3 of these odd-looking wrenches where he had just welded things at certain angles. He just completely cut them off and changed, and it was because that was to get the nut in that one part of the engine that you could only reach at a certain angle, and that stuff's cool. There are collectors for that kind of thing. So if you have odd stuff too, that helps.
Yeah, it's speaking of like how these things work. Like my older brother who I've referenced on there, now he's just a golf playing retiree, but he was really into cars when we were younger. In fact, he built this shop. He doesn't work on, I don't think he works on them anymore. I'm pretty sure he said he's just tired of doing it, but I guarantee you he has a garage full of automotive tools that are very specific to he worked on very specific types of cars. And so, if you find that collector or that person that works on those things can bring big value for sure. And they're not cheap. They could be very expensive.
Well, you find, like I said, Mac tools or like Snap-on branded sockets, things like that. Even like a little socket can bring dozens of dollars, and you wouldn't ever. And it serves the same purpose as all these other ones. It's just a higher end collectible brand. They've got like lifetime guarantees and stuff like that. So, and really, really big sockets, things that most people wouldn't need, but is a specialty item. Probably not a lot of them were made, and there's someone searching for that kind of thing. So, kind of odd, quirky stuff. Can definitely work. For a long time, I would buy stuff up $1 here, 50 cents there for just the little pliers. Oh, well, they don't want anything because they're rusted. And I would just put them down in like this little vat of distilled vinegar, and let it kind of eat at some of that rust. And then I'd pull it off with one of those kind of bristly metal brush attachments you can put in a hand drill. And I would just clamp that into a vise, and I would go around, polish the whole thing. It takes just a few minutes. Then you just dab a little bit of oil, like WD-40 or something, on it to kind of clean it off and oil it so it doesn't immediately start rusting again. And then that thing's going to be good for the rest of your life. And it'll bring a lot more than what you paid for it. So some of those may take a little work if you want to refinish them, but there are a lot that can be sold just as is. Complete sets of older things particularly. And I can't remember the letter, but you can look up on eBay. Craftsman made a set of sockets, and I can't remember if these are metric or the standards, maybe both. But each one of them has a letter on them. You've probably seen them. There are different models. There's like, V or double C or whatever. They have a letter where they say the number of what the socket is. But there's a particular letter set that if you find the sets, they sell for like over $1,000. Just a little set of sockets from Craftsman because it was like the first set they made or something like that. And so with any of those things, just look up sold items, look at highest sold items, and you'll get an idea of the particulars. Nice. So moving on, other things that you might find in a garage would be fishing equipment, fishing gear, rods and reels, tackle boxes, and all the other stuff. There are things in those tackle boxes that can be worth really good money. If you have old vintage lures, it's even better if they're still in the original little box with the little plastic or the box lid. The better the condition, the better. If you could find one that's in a pretty nice quality box and it looks like it's never been used in that could be worth a good amount of money. Fishing lures, there's a big collectible market for those as well. And there are lures out there selling for over $1,000 every week on eBay. Just a little lure.
One lure?
Yeah, one lure.
Wow.
Yep. Certain ones, old ones that are made out of wood that oftentimes were like handmade, and they have almost like the old glass kind of googly eye things on them, or like, or inserts. Some of those that have particular types of hooks on them in good conditions can bring huge money because those older ones, less of them have survived. There weren't as many made before they were commercially producing them. And it may be a one-of-a-kind piece, and you just really don't know. So these collectors, they want rarities. They want items. They want things that most people don't have. So if you have something bizarre or old but in really good condition, you should look it up. A lot of times the brand will be on the spinner or maybe on the hook, or it'll be almost like screen printed, or not screen, it almost looks like a stencil, like they spray painted something on it. Hedon, the brand Heddon, had that a lot. It almost looked like they'd stencil sprayed it. So lures Also, there are particular types of fish knives or tools that you use that can bring big monies in those. And the tackle boxes themselves, particularly ones that maybe had some sort of enamel paint on them, are older metal ones from, again, the 40s, 50s, and 60s. There are brands that can bring really good money. And it's just collectors, again. But they're also functional. It's just like tools. Maybe people are collecting it, maybe they're using it. It doesn't really matter, right? There's a lot of people out there.
That remember the oh my gosh, Mayberry RFD, the Andy Griffith show, where in the beginning they were going off with a fishing pole and
a cane pole,
and you had that cane basket, and they were heading out there. I bet you that's worth something today.
For sure. Oh, and their fishing baskets. That's a good point. Wicker, like these older wicker fish baskets. Those things can sell for huge money. And, there's still a big market in reels. There are all kinds of old vintage types of reels where they were trying to experiment with making different kinds that were like old telescoping rods that still are in good shape, can sell for good money. And fishing reels. I mean, I got into a really nice lot of fishing reels about 3 or 4 years ago. And that was one of the best scores that I have had, probably in the top 5 I've ever had. And so there are some very collectible fishing reels out there, brands like Fluger. I think it's Pfluger, or actually it's Euger, I think. That's a nice brand. And Ambassadors, those reels in good condition, old ones, can be super, super collectible. And I've sold one for $4,500 to give you an idea of how much people will pay for one fishing reel. It was a left-handed reel, so it's a little quirky, but fishing reels bring big money. I don't have to go through all of the different brands because it's easy to look up. But did you grow up fishing?
I did. I never really liked eating fish, but
okay.
I grew up on a river, so we always fished. I was thinking about something. So there's these fly fishing stores that, we have a couple of them here in the area, and a lot of places will have them. If you find a reel, that you think this, and you look it up, is it worth going into these stores to see if there's any market for it? Like, not that they would necessarily buy it, but they might know someone that's looking for vintage reels.
Sure. I mean, I would, Facebook Marketplace is a place you can search for as a potential buyer and as a seller, but then you can make listings that have a picture of something, and then in the description it says, I'm looking to buy these things. I mean, you can put stuff out like that. It's free. Or if there are Facebook groups that are in your region, you can join like for free for buying and selling. You can market yourself, and you can to sell it or to say, I'm a buyer, so please contact me. But yeah, and there's a big market online, all of the big, eBay and all of those. You can find just about anything that you want. But if you've got grandpa's, fishing stuff out in the garage, and it's just collecting dust, no one's ever using it, they're old, you don't want to break them, kids don't care or whatever, then, take a look. Lures especially have done very well for me in the past. And a lot of times you can get on Marketplace and somebody will just be selling a tackle box it's like $25, but the tackle box is full of these old lures. And you're like, I can get $10-15 bottom dollar for each of those lures, and then I can sell the tackle box itself too. And it's only $25. So you sell 2 lures, you've made your money back. You sell the rest of them and the tackle box, and then that's a good flip. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, what else do we have in the garage that we would want to sell?
I would say another big thing people keep in the garage a lot of times is camping equipment. So I would say either sports equipment or camping equipment, depending on the sport. It may not be in the garage, but if you have like golf clubs, for example, out in the garage and you don't play golf anymore, and you've got a really nice set of whatever brand, Titleist or whatever it is, there's people searching all the time because golf clubs have gotten crazy expensive. Almost all the gear for golf is expensive, unfortunately. It's a super fun sport, but I know lots of people who have 1 or 2 sets of golf clubs, and they haven't been out since college, or they got busy, had kids, and they can't do it. So golf clubs is a good one. You think of the popular sports in the summer. If you've got used equipment that's still in good shape, I guarantee people would rather get that than go online and buy something new or have to go out to the store. So sports equipment, but then outdoor equipment. There's tents, sleeping bags that are rated for very cold and are in good condition. And then every kind of thing you can think of. Hiking shoes, walking sticks, different types of heaters that you can take. If it's, say, rainy and you want to stay in, you can heat by just using a little gas can. Or camping stoves, things that are smaller, lighter weight, and you could backpack with tend to be really hot items because those tend to be pretty expensive. It's like every ounce of weight you save, it costs an extra $150 for that product. And you can really go down a deep rabbit hole and spend just unreal amounts of money on outdoor equipment. So people are always searching for, can I get something that's almost, new in quality, but I'm paying half for it? You might have some really nice stuff out there. And camping's another one of those things that people will get excited sometimes. They'll buy something really nice, or even they'll get it as a gift, and they just find that they only camp once a year, if that. So, it's spring, right? Spring cleaning. A lot of people like to go out, and I clean my garage twice a year, once in the spring and once in the fall. And it's about time to do it again. And stuff I don't remember that I've used this in the last couple of years. It's gone. It's trashed. That's kind of for me, because otherwise I'll just accumulate stuff, And I don't want to.
In my attic, I have a bunch of camping gear that we don't. I was a big camper when I was younger, and now I'm just like, I do not want to sleep on the ground in the dirt. My wife still loves to, but we were just having this conversation about let's get rid of some of this camping stuff. There's people like us that I don't want to sell it. I just want to get rid of it. So being aware as a reseller, I was like, that's happening. Like there's garage sales all over where people are getting rid of their camping gear.
Well, and the last thing I'll say, so camping gear is a big one, and you can look up all the different types of camping gear. All of those have collectible things, all of that people are buying, or brands. Like if you can find really, really old branded REI stuff. What is it? Recreation Equipment Incorporated. So I found a pair of feet warmers that you kind of put down inside of a shoe that said, and it doesn't say REI, it just says Recreational Equipment Incorporated. And it was, I don't know if they were in Seattle or someplace up in the Northwest is where they're from. But that stuff can be collectible because it's vintage, right? It's cool to have the thing from early on before that company had really taken off. The last thing
they're now everywhere, obviously.
For
but
sure.
Back in the day, they were like one flagship store.
Exactly. Kind of like if you can find, an old mug that had the original logo from the first year or two of Starbucks, like that would be pretty darn collectible.
Ooh.
So the last thing I'll say is maybe that that old Chevelle or whatever Super Sport that you've had on blocks in the garage, in the double garage on the side, let's be honest, you're not actually going to restore that thing. I am so sorry to tell you that, because
you hate to be the bearer of bad news.
It was yours in high school, right? You kind of broke down at a time when you were young.
Matt,
you didn't have the money.
Matt, I promise.
You didn't have the money, and so, but you kept telling yourself, and every year costs got higher. You had another kid. You got another house to rent, and you got this other, and you don't want to spread out your risk too much. You can't spend the money on yourself, and good on you for not being selfish, but it's been 40 years, and you've got this car up on blocks. Now, some of these older muscle cars, now, if you have a pristine, nice car, and you bought it to have fun with, enjoy, but then the kind of the fun is worn off, or maybe, I would like some other toy or some other thing, you've got the disposable income, maybe now's the time to go sell that, because the cost of all cars are going up, but every year that goes by, if you have a good quality, sought-after, collectible car, still in good condition, in a garage, I mean, that's exactly what a collector's looking for, or somebody who wants to buy something for investment purposes. So maybe sell that. But as an alternative to selling that, maybe you're that person who had these dreams and you just haven't followed through with them for real world reasons. You can part out these cars. So every component, a door handle, the little flip screen thing on the tiny little driver's side air conditioning thing where you can close it or you can open it, even stuff like that. Those things break over time in people's cars, and it's annoying. They just want that one part. But guess what? That hasn't been manufactured since 1969. So there's a finite number of them left, and maybe you can't find a company who's making or will fabricate that again. Everything, to the little emblems that used to be on the hoods, or on the back to say what the model number was or the name. Everything you can think of, exterior and interior on a car, has value, especially for older ones. So maybe you just disassemble that puppy and you sell a part after part. To part out a car like that, you could maybe even do better than selling the car intact. And that's crazy, but for certain cars, that's certainly true.
Absolutely. Just a little side, I have a Toyota Tacoma pickup truck that I love. but it's an older model, and I keep it because it's a truck and it's a Toyota and it'll run for 1,000 miles. But I have the seatbelt is going bad on the driver's side, and I got to replace it. You can't find them to replace it, so I have to go to a junkyard to part out just the seatbelt. So there's huge value.
I'm really glad you mentioned junkyards, because junkyards, if you're in need of something, a part, you'll probably, if it's okay, you'll probably do better getting it from a junkyard than even buying it secondhand online, that somebody has pulled it out, researched it, and knows. If you call them, you're like, hey, do you have a 78 Buick, whatever? I'm looking for the glove compartment, whatever you call that, the handle. And they're like, oh yeah, it's like, I don't know, $10 or something. You could get things for cheap. But I know a guy who get this is fascinating to me. He has researched components on particular kinds of vehicles that have really high resale value and are always in demand. He'll go to junkyards and he'll search the junkyard to see if he can find those particular cars. He'll then buy the entire car from them, not just a part, but he'll buy it, and you can usually get it really cheap because it's it's wrecked. It doesn't have just some components. They'll kind of add it up, but yeah, get it out of here. He'll go back, he'll pull out the parts, he'll sell the parts and make more than he spent. And then when he's done, he'll take and he'll be able to sell the metal or whatever's left back to a junkyard for money, or he'll scrap it, right, and get paid. So you can do that. And that's built all around the idea of aftermarket parts. Or not I say aftermarket parts, not parts that have been built after
OEM
originally.
Parts.
OEM, original, the original parts that are used, right? But they still have value. They're still functional.
Absolutely. Yeah, what a great idea. I think if I was going to start all over, that's what I would do.
Like I have the cable on the back of my truck bed, little truck bed, was snapped. So I tried to get just the cables again, and I got them. But then I realized that the whole assembly and where it bolts in and stuff to the truck bed is all one part of an assembly. So I have to have the whole thing. I got to call a junkyard, because they're not. It's a 1999 vehicle. They're not making them anymore.
Yeah, so, a lot of times junkyard, you just go down there with your tools and bring your tools
take
and
it
you'll
off,
part
bring
it
it
out.
up, and then we'll weigh it or what however they decide.
Right.
They'll look it up real quick. So the vehicle stuff. So sports equipment, outdoor equipment for like camping, tools, fishing equipment, automotive, everything can have really big values. And I'm not even touching on other stuff you might have out there. If you've got a canoe, like an old wooden canoe up in your rafters in the garage, go sell that puppy.
Yeah,
because those can bring big money.
If you take the mat approach, you would just sell everything in your garage would be empty at all times, which is fine.
I'll sell the wood. I'll sell the wood in the rafters. There won't be a garage anymore. That's fine.
Flo would walk out and the roof would collapse on her. You'd be a hero. Hey, all right, we are a show about what we sold. And I know you sold some things this week, and we're going to run over on time as we always do.
I know. I got to hustle.
I want to
here.
actually see what you sold this week.
Here is a pair of Gucci women's sunglasses, and let me pull them out to kind of show the style. These are kind of that older, like with the horn-rimmed kind of, they're not exactly horn-rimmed, but they've got like a wider
Oh yeah, my great aunt would have
rim.
wore those for sure.
Well, these are back in fashion, and I bought these. This was what they would call retail arbitrage, where you go to a store like a Ross or a Max, where you're buying something that's new and unused, but you're getting it at an already discounted rate, and then you turn around and sell it for what people online will pay for it, because they can't find it maybe locally. And so I bought these it was either Ross or TG Maxx. We have two of them right next to each other. But I paid about $140 for them, and I sold them for $330 on eBay.
Nice.
And part of it is that they're a little bit of a larger size. So a person searching would be searching for a different size that maybe less of them were made. It's not as common. And again, because I bought it at such a discounted price, I was able to sell it at what the average retail price is online. So that was nice, made a nice little profit on that. Another item I sold is this necklace. I should have taken it out of the bag, but it's basically a gold color, and it's gold color because it's technically gold filled. That means there's a small layer of gold on it. But this is twisted braid necklace, and at the bottom is it is a locket, but on the outside it has a very obvious like Art Nouveau design profile of a woman's head with her really swirling hair and stuff. Really cool if you like that style era that's usually very, kind of feminine and very curvy and a lot of women and hair and jewelry and stuff. But it's a little locket. You could have put someone's photograph in there. I have been slowly putting together these old Victorian design and era pieces of gold-filled jewelry because they're pretty hot right now. Gold is really high, so people will even buy gold-filled stuff at a higher rate right now to scrap it and harvest the gold. But people are also liking this kind of Victorian-era designs for collectability. So all that to say, this was like a $10 purchase, and I sold it for $174.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good job.
So pretty good. I could just tell by the design. Like it's cool, it's attractive looking, and I know people are digging that style right now. And I don't exactly know why, but who can say?
You're a genius.
Somebody out in Europe decided to put something Victorian on, and then all of a sudden it became a new fashion thing,
Sure.
where they're going to bring it back. This last one, the last couple aren't terribly exciting, but this is a little doll.
Oh.
It's not terribly old, though the head, hands, and legs are ceramic. They aren't porcelain, but they're ceramic, and the eyes are glass. So it's kind of a cool little piece. This is one that I didn't pay for, and probably, if I was out looking, I wouldn't have bought this. I don't even know if I'd have researched it, and partly just because I haven't spent a lot of time buying and selling dolls, and it's not of particular interest to me. But either way, this sold for $42, and the person who had it, didn't care at all how much they got for it, which I hear a lot. It's just like, get it out of my house.
Yeah,
so
because
I have
that
the room.
doll's going to come alive in the middle of the night and murder you.
Well, it hasn't yet. But come to mention it, it did sound like something was breathing over my shoulder last night, but I don't know.
Dolls are creepy. I don't get them, but anyway.
You say that. I mean, this is a very sweet-looking doll compared to I have had ones that look like
they
they're
always are, Matt.
straight
they
out of a
are.
horror movie, thing. But okay, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Last two things, real quick. This is a little gold ring. I think I maybe mentioned. I can't remember if I said it on the last episode or what. But I went to this ring, by the way, it's yellow gold. It's 10 karat gold, and it has a large green tourmaline is the stone. And it's kind of a rectangular shape, probably a step cut of some kind. But I went to this local coin shop that buys coins and stuff in my town, and they also buy gold and silver. So sometimes I can get a better price there than I can get online. And the added kind of thing for the people I'm selling for is that they don't have to lose the eBay fee. So if I sell it to them, not only do they not lose the eBay fee, but it's cash immediately in my hand. I can pay them faster too. So sometimes I go there and I'll sell tokens or coins or paper money. And getting to talk with them, I was asking them all the types of things that they do buy. Okay, so you buy silver, right? Okay, great. You buy sterling. Do you buy like 800 silver or some of these other? Okay. Do you buy weighted silver things? So I'm going through all the questions, and the same thing with gold. Solid gold. Do you buy gold filled? Yada yada. And I said, what do you do with the stones? And they say, a lot of times we just pitch them, or like sometimes someone's interested. And I said, well, here's my name and number. If you just assume throw them away, I'll buy them from you, or if you'll hold on to some of them. So I made that connection. And also they said, listen, we don't usually test stones. We're not in the jewelry business. We just buy the gold to scrap it. And so while they're looking at my stuff to pay me, to figure out how much they're going to pay me, I see this little place in their display that's got some rings. And I think, okay, so they already said that they're not really knowledgeable and this is not really their thing, but they've got some silver and gold here that they didn't buy to scrap. So I guess they think it's more value. I saw this little 10 karat ring, and it didn't have a price that I could see, so I asked her to look at it. And I asked her, how much would you pay? Or how much, do you want for this? And do you know what the stone is? Nope, don't know what the stone is. We don't test them. She puts it in the thing. It's 10 karat gold. She weighs it based on the gold price and the little percentage that they want to make. She quoted me $95. I said, okay, I think I'll take that, because this is clearly an antique. It's clearly a Victorian era, late 1800s ring. And I was curious about what the stone would be. Now, in 10 karat gold, you can find glass, you can find very low quality gemstones, but you can also find nicer ones. So it was a little bit of a gamble. I went home and tested it. It tested as a green tourmaline. That's very good. It's harder than glass, so it didn't fall in that category. I put it on as a buy it now for $250. I paid $95. I had watchers immediately. In 2 days, I accepted a best offer of $225. So I paid $95. 2 days later, I sold it for $225, just because I saw the value in the way that it looked, and that my gamble that it would be at least a semi-precious stone paid off.
That's awesome.
That's a fun thing. That's something that people out there everywhere can do, provided you research, or maybe you've already got experience with it like I do. And so I do take risks, but they're usually pretty calculated risks. Last thing, I saved this for last because I know you'll be most interested in this. It's sold, and this is one of two different ones. I got
Enter the Dragon.
Enter the Dragon, Bruce Lee. I mean, this thing opens up. He's got some type of a sword and shoes.
Wait, is that from the 70s?
Hands. It is not from the 70s. I believe it's from the 90s or early 2000s. So let me look.
Okay.
2000. So this is an unopened. It's from 2000. So it's 25 years old. It's never been opened, never been used. And he looks pretty sweet, doesn't he?
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. It's a Bruce Lee G.I. Joe doll, basically.
Yeah, Bruce Lee, the Dragon series, and it's large. This is probably
a 50-something-year-old man might be very interested in
for sure. This is
that.
a 12-inch figure. So there are two of these, and he was in different outfits, but each of them sold for $99, so $200. It's pretty good for this kind of
thing. Where'd you get it?
This was a consignment thing. I was selling. I think I came back with like 8 large boxes full of unopened action figures of various kinds, spanning Cartoon Network, Marvel, things like Ninja Turtles, Transformers, and then the vast majority was Simpsons, the cartoon Simpsons show characters and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I've probably done about 1,500 sales off of some of this stuff so far, and only maybe 30% has sold. So they're going to do really well when it's all said and done.
Bruce Lee is amazing. That's so cool.
Bruce Lee.
Wow. Well, all right. Well, that is lots and lots of good ideas of things that we can be looking for. Find your Bruce Lee action figure, because that's going to be worth something for people. That my older brother, who loved Bruce Lee, was like his hero in the 70s. So he listens to the show, so I'm sure he's like, wait a second, I can get my hands on a Bruce Lee action figure.
That's right.
Anyway, that is all the time we have for the day. Matt, any last words about what we find in the garage, or what we should be doing, what we should be looking for?
Yeah, this afternoon, go out to your garage, grab a handful of tools, maybe a tackle box, come into the living room, put Enter the Dragon on in the background, and sort through and see what you got. And then maybe you'll feel, you'll feel inspired and pumped up by his amazing speed. And there you go. That's all you need.
That is great advice. All right, guys, remember, like we said, follow, like, subscribe wherever you get your podcast or wherever you find us. Tell a friend. Go out there and make some money, and then tell us a story. Send us an email about what you sold, how you sold it, all those fun things. Otherwise, we'll be back with a brand new show next week about things that we find in the house. We appreciate you listening. Take care.